So, good morning, everybody. So, this is with great pleasure that we are going to open our second symposium with HUST University. I'd like to welcome the delegation from HUST University and thank you so much for coming here and for this opportunity of cooperation with UFMG. This is really a very important cooperation for us. We are sure that we have lots of things to share, lots of things to build, and I'm completely right that I'm completely sure that for economics faculty, it will be a new opportunity, some door that's opening for us. So thank you for coming here and helping us to build this cooperation. So for this open panel, I would like to invite Professor Aziz, our Dean of the International Department. So thank you, Professor Aziz. I'd like to invite Professor Anderson Cavalcanti, the Vice Dean of our Economics Faculty. I'd like to invite Professor Liu, our Dean of the Confucius Institute, that's here representing. We are celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Confucius Institute. And I would like to invite Professor Jinqi, representing HUST University, to be here with us. I'd like to invite Professor Federico Gonzaga Jaime, the Dean of Cedeplar. I'd like to invite Professor Rafael Ribeiro, the Dean of the Graduate Program in Economics. And I'd like to invite Professor Paula Ribeiro, the Dean of the Demographics Program, Graduate Program. So thank you, everybody, for being here. So to open our panel, I would ask Professor Anderson Cavalcanti to start it.
Hi, good morning. Welcome, everybody. It's with great pleasure that I'm here. I'd like to thank all the people here on the table, a lot of people here, so I won't call their names, but I will especially thank this session, giving a warm welcome to the delegation of HUST University. It is with a great pleasure and honor that I stand before you today as the Vice Head of the Faculty of Economic Science of the Federal University of Minas Gerais to extend a warm and heartfelt welcome to our esteemed colleagues from China. In the spirit of global collaboration, the pursuit of knowledge, we are delighted to host this delegation from HUST University. It's always a pleasure to receive fellow academics, students, researchers, and professors. Our shared dedication to advancing research and academic excellence has brought us together, and we look forward to fostering meaningful partnerships that will enrich both our academic communities. Brazil and China, with their rich histories and diverse cultures, have much to offer each other regarding academic expertise and research endeavors. The exchange of ideas, collaboration, joint projects, and the establishment of lasting partnerships hold the potential to create innovative solutions to global challenges. Our faculty is well-structured and staffed to provide the ways and means to achieve a successful institutional partnership between Cedeplar, our hosts today, and HUST University, more than an association between two important, outstanding academic centers. This is an intercontinental partnership between two major countries with increasing common interests. I'm sure we both have a lot to learn from each other. As we embark on this journey of collaboration, let us celebrate the strength that comes from diversity and the wealth of perspectives that our international collaboration brings. Together, we can positively impact the academic landscape, pushing the boundaries of knowledge and contributing to the betterment of society. To our esteemed guests, please consider this institution your home away from home during your stay. Our doors are always open. We are ready to facilitate and support the exchange of knowledge and ideas. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Anderson Cavalcanti. I'd like to give the talk to Professor Aziz.
Good morning. It's a great honor for me to participate in the opening of this HUST-UFMG International Symposium. I extend a warm welcome to all the esteemed colleagues gathered here. I will especially salute here my colleagues at the table, my UFMG colleagues at the table, Professor Anderson, Professor Frederico, Professor Rafael, Professor Paula, also Professor Liu from our Confucius Institute, Professor Monica Viegas, who is putting together this excellent symposium, and our HUST colleagues, Ya Sun, Jin Yang, Jinqi, I hope I have not mispronounced too badly, Bam Wang. I'm delighted to host you at UFMG, and the best wish that comes to my mind is that your stay here is as enriching, as enjoyable as our time in Wuhan was. I have always been captivated by the insightful lessons that we can draw from mythology, especially in its playful exploration of human behavior. A prime example is the celebrated tale from Chinese literature and mythology, A Journey to the West. You'll find it in diverse formats, literature. Of course, it was first written as a book, and then it became a series. It became also a movie, and there are actually more than one version in as a series or a movie. And it tells the story of the monk Xuanzang, or Tripitaka, on his quest to India to obtain sacred Buddhist scriptures. He's accompanied by 3 unique protectors: Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, Zhu Baji, the pig, and Cha Wujing, Sandy. Each character brings their own distinctive strengths, their powers, and personalities to the journey. In my view, this story is a beautiful metaphor for the pursuit of knowledge and enlightenment. It illustrates how overcoming challenges through cooperative effort and harmonizing diverse talents can lead to achieving shared objectives. As we mark the 10th anniversary of our partnership, we reflect on our journey so far. While we have much to celebrate regarding our achievements, the potential of what we can still accomplish together leaves us with a horizon full of opportunities. Our shared journey in the quest for knowledge and enlightenment has yielded fruitful results. Yet, I firmly believe that the best is yet to come. Once again, I thank Professor Monica for organizing this event and for her kind invitation to be here this morning. I am very sorry I won't be able to remain for most of the time, so I wish all of you a great conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Aziz, for the sweet words. I'd like to invite Professor Liu to say some words representing Confucius Institute.
Good morning, Professor Aziz, Professor Monica, and the members here, and also my dear friends. I'm very glad to make a speech here, and on behalf of Confucius Institute, Professor Meering asked me to say a few words here, and I should say I'm really very much happy to see the professors from the School of Economics of HUST can come here to not only attend this conference, but also to participate in our Confucius Institute 10th anniversary celebration programs. So, so firstly, we can say welcome the Chinese professors here, and just like Professor Aziz have said, using the story from the Pilgrim to the West, we can say maybe human being we have lots of difficulties, but we try to learn from each other. It, of course, during the process, it's very difficult. So you need to conquer. Actually, in that story, they try to emphasize, if you want to become a Buddha, you need to overcome a lot of difficulties. So if we want to prosper, if we want to develop, we need to conquer a lot of difficulties. So the professors conquer a lot of difficulties, come over here. And also, I'm happy to say that the School of Economics for both universities of HUST and UFMG has been cooperating very well, and they have cooperating for a long time. And every year, they hold some kind of online or offline conferences. And I should say that is really very much helpful. And I'm also very happy our Confucius Institute can play a part in this big event. So I hope all of you can, while you're here, you can participate in our 10th anniversary, which will be held on November the 22nd in the evening at 7 p.m. in Ifani, and also our closing ceremony the whole day on November the 24th in Kajiduis. And I hope this conference a great success. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Liu. I would like to invite Professor Federico Gonzaga from Cedeplar, please.
Thank you, Monica. In the name of our center, I'd like to welcome everyone. Indeed, it's a great pleasure to receive the delegation of HUST University in our Center of Graduation in Economics and Demography. As you can see, there are lots of students interested in our partnership and the academics exchange between China and Brazil. As you can see, we have a lot of undergrad and graduate students as well. Hope you have a great symposium as well as other academics meetings here or in China to improve our connections. Thank you very much. Hope everything is going to be well. Thank you, Monica, and the other colleagues in the table.
Thank you, Professor Federico. I'd like to invite Professor Jinqi from HUST University, representing HUST University. Would you like me to?
I can say something and then So good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here and to attend our international symposium of FUMG and HUST Econ Department. And also, we already have a lot of workshop online during this summer. And also, Professor Aziz and Professor Monica has already visited our university in May, I think, if I remember it right. So then we have a great connections in a lot of aspects, and we find that we have a lot in common with academic interests and other things. So me and our colleagues feel very comfortable here recently. So thank you very much, and thank you for Monica, doing a lot of things, and also all the other faculty members in Cedeplar Center and Confucius Institute, Professor Liu. So thank you very much, and I'm so glad to be here and give you guys the presentation of, as well as my colleagues will give their speech about their research. So hope you will like our topics, and we will find something in common in the future. And I hope our collaboration can be continuous, in the future, go better and better. So thank you so much. And then I would like to play a video of our School of Economics. So some of you are not in China before or have not seen
This is a great new era, and with a background of globalization and informatization, China has made tremendous economic and social progress. As the world's second-largest economy, its international influence has continued to strengthen. This great resurrection of the Chinese nation provides a one-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the development of economic science within China. HUST was established in the central region of China's Optics Valley at the foot of the Yijia Hills. It has grown hand-in-hand with New China under the guidance of PRC and has become a world-class university in this new era. It is considered the pinnacle of the development of higher education in New China and was the first science and technology university in China to set up a separate school of economics. After nearly 40 years of hard work, SOE HUST, under the leadership of an older generation of famous economists, including Professor Cheng-Pei Kong and Lin Xiaogong, has formed a complete system for the teaching of economics and established a first-class learning and research institution. Based on the Chinese economy, the school keeps on striving to be at the forefront of economic development and has written a new chapter in economics by building a first-class economic institution with Chinese characteristics. As an important base for research and talent training in the development economics in China, the school has established a particular style described as having an international perspective, Chinese characteristics, and a Huazhong University band, and has built a team of dynamic, innovative, and pioneering faculty staff from both home and abroad. The school actively pursues a talent training mode that is in line with advanced international practices, which features at its core appreciating the humanities, developing a solid foundation, and with a strong emphasis on practice and innovation. While strengthening the teaching of basic theories and practical knowledge, it also pays great attention to the cultivation of all-round qualities such as English, mathematics, computers and technology, the humanities, and practical social skills, and strives to create a cradle for cultivating young talents and industry elites. A large number of outstanding talents in academia, politics, and business have emerged from here. Among them, a group of well-known scholars at home and abroad, known as the HUST Economist Group phenomenon. Based in China, yet with a global vision, the school has established networks for talent training, academic exchanges, and research cooperation with more than a dozen countries and regions around the world, including the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, New Zealand, and Singapore. The school has also developed a project to enhance the internationalization capacity of its teachers and expand the international horizons of students. It organizes hundreds of high-level international conferences, forums, and high-end academic lectures every year, building an important and broad platform for China's continuous integration into the globalized world economic cooperation system and for the development of economics theory. This initiative has won high praise from the academic community at home and abroad. The school's motto is to be ethical and virtuous in character, to revere knowledge, and to help society. It applies theoretical research to serve society, transforming its strong scientific research capabilities into social productivity and providing intellectual support to promote economic and social development. The school's development economics disciplines rely on the China Development Bank HUST Development Research Institute and the China Construction Bank HUST Inclusive Finance Research Institute to drive financial research, along with development economics theories, financial development, and inclusiveness theories, carry out research on financial practices with Chinese characteristics, and help financial development with Chinese characteristics. Taking advantage of the creation of the Hubei Free Trade Zone, FTZ, the school has established the FTZ Research Center at HUST, which focuses on free trade policies in the new era, the opening up and innovation of strategy FTZs, provides policy consulting reports, conducts research on related topics, and has built a think tank for FTZ research. Facing the sudden COVID-19 outbreak, the school used its intellectual advantages to actively contribute and make suggestions for the prevention and control of the epidemic. The suggests got highly approved by the provincial and municipal leaders, and a great deal of attention from the Policy Research Office of the CPC Central Committee. It organized seminars on the subject, provided research support, and helped Hubei's rapid economic recovery. Many teachers and students actively participated in the fight against the epidemic and ensured the resumption of economy, demonstrating the role and responsibleness of the school and the university. Perceiving the future trends of the world's economy and standing at the forefront of the discipline of economics, the School of Economics at Huazhong University will be guided by its double vision of building a national first-class, internationally renowned School of Economics and creating a first-class economic institution with Chinese attributes.
Okay, so I would like to invite my colleagues and bring our little gift from our HUST to every friend sitting here.
Professor Jessica Yassun.
Thank you.
Professor Jinqi, please. And Professor Bambam, please. So I'd like to invite Professor Rafael Ribeiro to say some words, please.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank very much the organizers for this conference. I'd like to thank our Chinese colleagues for coming here and joining us in this effort. I would like to say that as the head of the Economics Graduate Studies, I'm thrilled by the possibilities and opportunities that this initiative may create. This is a unique possibility for us to engage in debates in order to discuss the pressing issues that we're facing that lies ahead of us in the 21st century, such as growing income inequality and climate change. And I firmly believe that it's only by the combination of different expertise, exchange of ideas, and also different perspectives, aspects, and angles towards the same issues that we can face these challenges and grasp the opportunities lying ahead. So I would like, again, to extend my gratitude and thank you very much for the initiative. We are looking forward to start the cooperation effectively. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rafael. I'd like to invite Professor Paula Ribeiro.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone. Good morning, my colleagues on the table. Good morning, especially to you who came from China. Long trip, so thank you for being here. On behalf of the demography program of UFMG, which I'm very proud to say is the best demography program in the country, we are very happy to be here and wish to collaborate. I hope we can establish partnerships, and I hope you as a program in economics can benefit from our knowledge in demography, and we can exchange. We are a program that has several international students, especially from Latin America and Africa, but we haven't had any students from Asia, so who knows, maybe it's the opportunity for this exchange. And in the afternoon, I'm sure there will be students from our program in the session dedicated to the graduate students, and many of them are interested in this relationship. So thank you so much, and I thank you for the event, Monica, that you've been putting together for so long, and I wish everybody a very nice week. Thank you so much.
So thank you, everybody. Now we are going to finish this panel and then start the first section. Yes, okay. They want to take a photo?
Photo, yes.
Yes, please. With
Professor Kenya come here and how about Professor Kenya Mônica, você tem que estar na foto. Thank you.
Já fui a Diamantina, não? Correndo nunca fui. Fui. Bom demais, cara. Muito. Tem uma experiência, assim, tipo... Eu já convidei, já tem uma vez. E você viu?
So thank you, everybody, for being here. It's a great pleasure that we are going to start our second symposium. Actually, we had a first symposium that was organized by Professor Ricardo Ruiz. And then the second, we had a series of workshops. And now that's why we are telling about our second symposium, HUST-UFMG. So it's with great pleasure that we start this symposium. For this symposium, we selected some different themes from the first one. The first one, we discussed more macroeconomics and some politics. And now, in this symposium, we are focused on health economics, demographics, and environmental economics. That were some themes that we discussed in the visit that we had in Wuhan. I'd like to say to the students that are here that we will have a coffee break and we will have some time for a talk with the professors from Wuhan. We have a talk for the graduate students and also for the undergraduate students. It's really important. I would to emphasize that I would like to have you here because there is an opportunity and we are signing this cooperation and probably we will have opportunities for students to want to go to China, to Wuhan, to do the master in economics. So please come here and say to your colleagues that this is a unique opportunity that you have to talk with them, to know more about things in China, things in Wuhan, life there, and so on, and start this new conversation, okay? I'd also to thank you, Carolina Doria, who helped us to give us the great support. And I'd like to thank equidade that gave us the financial support to organize this symposium. I'd like to thank you, Nyotin, who will help us with the visit that I will do with Kenya with them on Saturday. Also, Confucius Institute that helped to organize this meeting. And with more gratitude, I'd like to thank you, the Health Economics Group, that helped us to be all the time organizing this symposium and also the 6 workshops that we did during the summer. So thank you so much. And now I'd like to invite Professor Jinqi, who is going to start. Professor Jinqi is assistant professor at the HUST University, and she works with health economics, labor economics, demographics, a little bit of demographics, and she did her PhD in United States, and then she came back to China, and now she is based on the economics faculty of Wuhan. So thank you so much, Jinqi.
Thank you, Monica.
So we have some. We are
I can finish that in 30 minutes.
Okay, 30 minutes.
Jessica will have 30 minutes, and then we will take questions.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, if we still have time.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so now it's my turn. So thanks again for everybody for being here. And today I will going to present my research about the policy analysis of health insurance in China. And this work is actually a combination of structural model and empirical studies. But I think I will skip the boring part, like a lot of math. I think most of you don't like math, including myself. So I will go some details about the whole story and help you to get the main idea of this research. And then I will to the conclusion, what I'm finding here. And I think it will help you to think it's interesting story. Okay, so today my topic is the value of urban and rural basic medical insurance and the optimal funding level based on the moderate equity. So this is a joint work of with my graduate student, and this is a preliminary work. So we are still have some jobs to do in the future, and I will just show you today what we've done until now. Okay. So first of all, I would like to give you a little bit about the research background. Of course, the background about the basic medical insurance in China. So that's the most important health insurance system in China. And until now, I think China has already accomplished a big goal of this universal coverage of basic medical insurance. So we can say that according to 2018 data, so the total coverage is almost 100%. So it's 96.8%. And the coverage of urban and rural residents, because China has a very classic dual economy model. So we have, from the urban part, we have 96.1 coverage. And for the rural part, it's 17.6 respectively. That's according to our health service survey nationally. And I think before we get to this big goal, so before we get the universal coverage, we have actually 4 important steps to establish the universal coverage. The first step is to establish the urban employee basic medical insurance in 1998. So it covered all the urban employees. So if you have a workplace, the workplace will provide you the benefit, like you need to pay the contributions, and your employers will pay the money part of the insurance for you. And we have the next step, so cover the whole urban residents. So in 2003, we have the new rural cooperative medical scheme. So it covered all the rural residents according to at household level. So the household can voluntarily to pay the premium and to get this benefit. And the third step is happened in 2007. So we call it the urban resident basic medical insurance. So that's for all the other urban unemployed residents, including children and students. So that means according to those three steps, we actually put all the people in the pool. So everybody will have their suitable coverage for health insurance. But there is a step 4, like we are discussing it a lot recently, because there is still a huge gap between the urban residents and the rural residents. So that means now our target is to put those two part of residents together. So we would like to improve the equity issue. So we have the basic medical insurance for urban and rural residents happened in 2016. So actually we are doing an integration of these two systems and put them together. So why we need to take care of these two part of the residents? Because the gap between their benefits. So what kind of differences between urban and rural residents? There are a lot. So there is, as for the reimbursement rate, there are a huge gap. For the urban residents, they can only get reimbursement at 30 to 50%. But if you are an urban resident, then you can have much higher rate of reimbursement. And also for the medicine catalogs, so if you are a rural resident, so you can only take the medicines from the insurance, like 700 to 1,300. But the urban residents, they can have more, 2,200 items. And for the healthcare providers, so that means when you are choosing the hospital you are going, there are more limitations for rural residents because they only have the fewer numbers and the lower quality hospital to go. So that's the difference. So we would like to make the integration of the basic medical insurance for urban and rural residents. So the pilot programs at city level. So some cities have voluntarily to enroll in those integration before the country level. So they put together the funding pool, the medicine catalog, and the designated hospitals. So they make that the same, at the same level. And in 2016, the State Council has issued the very official announcement on the opinions on integrating the basic medical insurance system for urban and rural residents. And they officially say that we need to doing the integration of coverage scope, financing policies, benefit, insurance benefits, and catalog, and all the institution and fund management. So they should to be all the same, at the same level for urban residents and rural residents. So this is so until 2022, almost all the provinces and cities have implemented the integration, and we have more than 60 enrollees are rural residents. So we have almost accomplished the integration. And then what's the next step? So you say we have already got the universal coverage, and we also solved the equity issue, probably. But what's the next step? So we need to think about the high quality development of our basic medical insurance. So we need to do it better, yes. And then what kind of objects here we are facing, like what kind of things we need to do next is to improve the efficiency with moderate equity. So that's the object the central government has been provided for all the policymakers and all the researchers. Let's think about this question. And we would like to enhance the fairness and inclusiveness of basic medical insurance coverage and benefits, gradually narrowing the gaps between those systems, the urban and the rural systems, and the population groups and regions, because there are still like differences and inequity for those different populations. And we need to continuously strengthen the redistributive function of medical insurance while reasonably determining the level of benefit to them. So that means we will not like make the benefit higher and higher, except respect for the funding level. So we need to consider about the development level of the economic and social level. So we need to make it match with each other and make the funding can sustainably development. And so the motivation of our paper is trying to answer those questions. The first question is, after the integration of urban and rural system, what is the total value of the basic medical insurance to the recipients? So that's the first question we want to ask, or want to answer. So, and then the second one is, with the social and economic development, does the current level of health insurance benefit effectively met the increasingly devised and multi-dimensional medical insurance demands? So that's another question to answer, because we have higher income now and we have higher quality of life. So what kind of demands, the true demands of the people? So what do they like? Yes. And the third one is, if we would like to achieve the goals of high quality development of medical insurance, how to establish a stable and sustainable fundraising mechanism and implement prices and targetedly reform in the future. So that's our next objective, and we would like to do better about our medical insurance. So back to the classical literature, if you are interested in health economics, we need to read a lot of literature about evaluate the welfare effect of the social medical insurance system. And we would like to find the optimal benefit and funding level. So that's the final goal of all the evaluation thing. We need to understand the cost and the benefit of this program, because you need to spend a lot of money to expand the health insurance and get the benefit level higher, but what we can get back. So we need to understand the benefit. So we need to do the evaluation work. And there are a lot of empirical evidence that already estimate the single welfare outcomes. So what are the single welfare outcomes, such as health outcomes? So are you feeling better after the expansion of health insurance? Can you frequently go into the hospital if you feel not well? So the healthcare utilization thing. And also we may focus on the consumption part and the financial risks at the household level, something like that. So we have a lot of single outcomes we have already studied already. And there are a lot of literatures are looking at the effect of reform on coverage, utilization, health, and expenditure. So that's the things we've already done in the literature. Based on the optimal medicine insurance model and sufficient statistic approach, so this approach is very popular recently. They're using this approach to estimate the actually optimal reimbursement level. So some of the researchers in China have already tried this approach to estimate the optimal level of benefit. So this is a foundation we are trying to study at. So as for our research, we would like to add to the literature by developing a welfare analysis to estimate the total value of basic medical insurance of urban and rural residents, especially after the integration. So this is the research question we would like to look at. So specifically, we developed a framework to investigate the value of medical insurance integration to rural recipients. In terms of what? In terms of the amount of current non-medical consumption they would need to give up to be indifferent between receiving and not receiving the integration basic medical insurance. So that's the definition of the total value. And to be said that in economic world, if you are learning the very basic economic class, we know a word which is the willingness to pay. So how much you would like to pay to get this benefit. But empirically, it's very difficult to estimate, or it's very difficult to observe. For example, if I want to ask you a question, so how much you would like to pay for the public road, or how much you want to pay for the public insurance, maybe people will have different answers, because there are a lot of difficulties to observe that. People will hide their true demands, their true value of this stuff. And there is another thing is that people have different understanding about those public goods. Even though it's very valuable, but you cannot know it, you didn't realize it, is that right? So that will make the difficulties to know the true willingness to pay to all public goods. So that's the foundation of this stuff. And So first, we would like to estimate this thing, and then we want to examine the heterogeneities of the willingness to pay for population in different health status and income levels and age brackets and area locations. So we would like to find out, is there any differences between people's willingness to pay to this medical insurance? And according to the findings, we would like to provide the policy implementations about the optimal funding level based on our formal welfare analysis. So we would like to propose optimal funding designs, like how much money we would like to collect from the individual and the government subsidies. So that's our thinking about this or research design. So we would like to extend the formal welfare analysis of social insurance in China and translate several welfare relevant outcomes into statements about welfare and provide the first estimate of willingness to pay of medical insurance. So that's the first try to calculate these numbers. And we add to the literature on the effect of urban and rural basic medicine insurance and health policy optimization. And also we enrich the application. So we use several approaches in our study, which called complete information approach and optimization approach. So we use these approaches in the analysis of public policy in China. And actually, these two approaches can also be extended to other kind of public policy in other countries, different policy background. We can also use this approach. So the literature review, let's see how much time we have. As for the literature review, I will go very quickly. First, I just mentioned about the literature about the optimal public goods provision. So how can we know the optimal provisions of the public goods? So we can find the answers in a very, very old literature. So the total quality and price of public goods will be determined by the sum of individuals' willingness to pay. So this is very foundations of the public good provision. And the public goods are non-exclusive. The prices are unobservable. Optimal tax and policy design, so that will have a lot of difficulties to directly observe and measure the willingness to pay. People have incentives to hide the true intentions, and also personal preference and cognitive differences exist in this stuff. So you cannot go there and directly ask people how much you would like to pay for the public good. That's impossible. And even though you get the numbers, they are not accurate. Is that right? So we would like to, so there are the reason why a lot of policy researchers, they just using the nature experiment and using microsurvey data to construct the reduced form. So just run a regression like the X will be the reforms and the Y will be the outcomes. So they will just looking at the single welfare outcome, like health status, like utilization, and all the other things you think the health insurance will influence. So that's the literature. And then Chetty, which is a very famous public economist in US, so present like two effects of the health insurance expansion. They said it's in the opposite direction. So we have a welfare improvement from consumption smoothing. If you have health insurance, maybe you can spend more money on buying some non-medical goods. And there are also an efficiency loss because there is a moral hazard issue. So if you provide more benefit to people, people tend to maybe waste the medical resources. Yes. So there are two directions of the welfare effect. So the marginal welfare effect from reform is the difference between those two effects. So they using sufficient statistics to estimate the optimal reimbursement rate. It has very developed method to calculate the optimal level of insurance. And Finkelstein, which we refer this using this paper as a main reference to our research, developed a framework for welfare analysis of Medicaid and apply them to the organ health insurance experiments. So they use and they construct a framework and then empirically estimate the willingness to pay and the policy externalities using this method to calculate the organ experiments, the willingness to pay to the Medicaid. And as for China, we already have done a lot of policy analysis according to the rural system and the urban system. So a lot of literatures have already found out the health outcome has been improved and the mortality has been reduced for the rural residents. As for the urban one, there are also some literature find out positive effects on health outcome and for the insured urban residents. But except for the health outcomes, literature show that medical insurance coverage has positive effect on financial risk and savings and household consumptions. That's the big picture we have been known for the literature. As for the integration part, we also have a lot of reduced form to study the effect of the integration. And we have several literature have already tried to get using the medical insurance reimbursement data and trying to investigate the impact of cost sharing ratio on healthcare utilization and estimate the price elasticities. From the perspective of efficiency, some of the Chinese researchers have already tried using the sufficient statistic to study the optimal reimbursement rate for the medical insurance in China. And they point out that the reimbursement rate in China is still lower than the optimal level. So this is how we construct the framework. So we first gave a simple model of individual utility. So according to 2019, this is published in Journal of QJE. Okay, so this is a utility function, and the individual utility U depends on the non-consumption expenditure and as well as the health status. And the health status is also depends on the medical expenditure and the theta. The theta is an underlying state variable for the individual that includes medical conditions and other factors affecting health and the productivity of medical spending. So that's the basic consumptions for this model. And then we add a Q here to represent the reform status. And we use the Q to represent the urban and rural basic medical insurance integrated or not. If it has already covered, so if the residents in the survey part, if the resident answers that it is covered by urban and rural basic medical insurance after 2016, we will give the value of 1 to the Q, and if not, it equals to 0. So we assume that the medical spending depends on Q and theta, and then we bring this into our function of health, and we have this stuff. So, and we also assume Q only affects health outcome through this channel, but it does not affect health through non-medical investment. So this is our basic assumption to simplify all the calculation. Okay, so here is the key part. So we can see the component on the left of this equation. It is expected utility from non-medical expenditure C and health H before the insurance integration. So this is the expected utility actually before the reform. And the right component in this equation is the after insurance integration. The expected utility from non-medical expenditure C minus this gamma 1 will be what we are interested in. So minus gamma 1 and the health H. And the gamma 1 will be the amount of consumption that the individual would need to give up in the world with integrated medical insurance that would leave her at the same level of expected utility as in the world without integrated medical insurance. So that's the definitions of the willingness to pay. Okay, so we would like to calculate gamma 1. That's the main object. So now how can we calculate out the gamma 1? We use the first approach is called complete information approach. So this approach specifies a normative utility function over all its arguments and require that we observe all this both before and after insurance reform. So we need to observe the things happened before the reform and after reform, including their health change, their consumption change, and the medical expenses change. The advantage of this approach is that we do not need to construct precise individual budget constraint for healthcare reform, as well as how individuals optimize their medical consumption under such constraint. But of course, there have some disadvantages of this approach, because if we only have the inaccurate estimates of utility function parameters in medical insurance reform, will affect the calculation of our willingness to pay. So that will make our calculation inaccurate. So let's first see, we actually assume the specific utility function, and then we put a coefficient of relevant risk aversion, just according to the literature, and we using the actual data to estimate the marginal utility of health. So we got this parameter out. And then, so we bring all the assumptions into our framework, and then basically, I will skip all the math part, and we can basically trying to calculate the gamma 1 out. Okay, and this is the second approach. Why I would like to give another approach, because this method is in the spirit of sufficient statistics approach provided by Chetty, and it will parameterize the impact of reform on individual budget constraint. So we can tell that assume the insurance reform affects individuals only through its impact on budget constraint, and individuals has enough ability and information to optimize behaviors. And this approach has the advantages and disadvantages, just opposite with this previous approach. So the advantage of this approach do not need to specify the full specification of utility function, only a partial specification, that's enough. And we using consumption or health specifications in the utility form. And the strengths and limitation of these two estimation methods complete each other. So that's why we would like to using these two approaches and compare their results. Okay, so we assume medical insurance integration only affect our individual's budget constraint by affecting medical expenditure specifically. And we have a gamma Q, which is the out-of-pocket ratio of total medical expenditure M. And M is relative to the health insurance reform, so whether integrated or not, and the theta. And the PQ is actually the premium of the medical insurance for urban and rural residents, because there is a premium change before and after the reform. So we put these parameters into our framework and to see what will happen before and after the reform. So finally, the individual payment of healthcare X is equals to the ratio of out-of-pocket money plus your premium. So that's the total number you are adding. You need to pay for your health. So including health insurance, including the money you spend in the hospital by your own out-of-pocket. Anything, I think I have time limitations, so I will quickly go through this. According to our assumption, the residents will choose C and M individually to maximize their utility. So we did a lot of calculations. And then our outcome of interest, the willingness to pay, gamma 1, could be written as this form. And because Q has only two values, reform or not reform, integrated or not. So we can just, to simplify the calculation, we use this approximately 2/2 of this representative we get before. We approximate gamma 1 as follow. And we need to put one part of this utility form. So first of all, we're trying to specify the consumption part in the utility function. So then we bring this stuff to the utility function and continue our calculation, and we can get those results. And if we use the health-based form in our utility function, so we are taking the derivative, partial derivative of health with respect to the utility function and get the results. And also we use component of consumption is written as follow. So GC here is the substitution function for consumption. We do not need to define and estimate it specifically. We're just using a form of the consumption, and we're trying to continue our results. So both of the approaches, we can have the results of the structure model of the willingness to pay. So our next step is to try to fill in the real data and to calculate the willingness to pay. So we are using a very famous survey in China. We call it CHARS. So it's China Health and Retirement Longitudinal Study. And this is the national representative middle and old population, and which means most of the sample are older than 45 years old. And it will give us the information about health insurance coverage, health status, non-medical and medical expenditure, individual and family characteristics. So that's basically including all of the information we need to calculate the willingness to pay. And it covered, the samples are from 28 provinces, 150 counties, and 450 villages. So because the national reform was happened in 2016, so we only try to first use 2 waves of the data, so 2015 and 2018 survey data, so to be compared before and after the reform. So the experiment and control group, we also try 3 ways to make the conclusions robust. So first of all, we're using a balanced panel data. So we matched up the same individual in 2015 and 2018. And if the people is covered by the old system in 2016, we put the value Q equals to 0. And if the respondent say that it is he or she covered by the integrated insurance in 2018, we will give the number Q equals to 1. So this is the first type. So the second one, we use repeated cross-sectional data. So we does not require the individuals are the same one in the 2 waves. And also according to their answers of the health insurance status, we have 2 groups. And the third way to separate the experimental group and control group, we use the policy implementation because they have a little bit time variations in the cities. So some of the cities have not completed integration in 2015. So we make them to be 0. But after that, all the cities will have the reform. So they will be valued as 1. So this is the way we put Q equals to 0 or 1 to compare the results. Okay, so I think the numbers are a little bit small, but I can just show you the main idea. So this table is just the descriptive statistics. So it is our old samples. And we also need some health input. So we use this weight method to calculate and build a health capital index system. So this index is constructed by combining individuals' self-reported health scores with 2 dimensions, which are physical health and mental health. And we calculated the results range from 0 to 1, which are then multiplied by 100 and to obtain a range of value of health from 0 to 100. So that will measure the health status of people before and after the reform. And also the consumption inputs. We use all the questions in the survey about the consumptions, including the weekly data, monthly data, and annual data, and to add them together according to different types and get the non-medical consumptions out. And we also estimate the marginal utility of health. So basically, we're just doing a very simple regressions and using one of the questions in the survey that is the satisfaction level of respondent respectively. So they have extremely satisfied, very satisfied, satisfied, not very satisfied, and not satisfied at all. So we have these 5 ranks. And we use this one to represent utility. And we also put consumption and health here. And then we add some individual control to the X and estimate out the beta 1 as our marginal utility of health. So this is another input. And after all this works, we also want to connect the premium level of different person if they are from different cities. So they will have different premiums before and after the reform. So we connect all the cities' policies to put those premium input of the old system and the integrated system before and after at different locations. So we have all the information here. And then we can finally put all the things together and put them back to our structure form and calculate the willingness to pay of this integrated medical insurance and its heterogeneity. So this is the result from the balanced panel data. So we can just look at the first row. The first row is about the full sample, the gamma 1. So if we use the complete information approach, we can calculate the result, which is 1,729 yuan. I will translate to the USD dollars to make you have a more clear. And then if we use the optimization approach, its number it will be a little bit higher because they are totally two different approach, so they will definitely give two different numbers. And if we are looking at the heterogeneity, it is a clear pattern that the people in poor health conditions, they will definitely have higher willingness to pay. And for the different region, the poorest part will have the lowest willingness to pay, and the rich region, such as the east part of China, like Shanghai, they will have the highest willingness to pay. And for the low income and high income, it's very obvious again because rich people will have higher willingness to pay to the health insurance, and for the there is no such difference between gender. So female and male, they are similar. As for the age, there is a very interesting pattern here. So the middle age, from 45 to 59, it has a lower willingness to pay. And then it starts increasing when you get older. But if you are old enough, like over 80 years old or older, so the willingness to pay starts to decrease again. So I think that's also it's very normal to understand the instinct after that. Okay, so and we're trying to using different way to separate our groups, and we have a little bit lower number of willingness to pay for the full sample. It's 1,349 yuan. And this is using the policy release time to separate the groups. And we also have similar number, 1,489. And also the patterns are the same. So the heterogeneity are very similar. So what are the conclusions finally after all the works? I think the takeaway is that the minimum willingness to pay of integrated medical insurance of rural and urban residents in the range is 1,349 to 2,045 yuan. It's around the dollars is $190 to $292. So this is the whole value, your valuation of this policy, health insurance. That does not mean you ask people how much you want to pay, but this is the value of their insight. So there are true demands of this health insurance. So the willingness to pay are different among different health status, L allocations, income levels, and age brackets. The willingness to pay of rural residents increases with the decreases health status and increased the income level. And the second one is the eastern part has the highest willingness to pay, followed by the central region, with the western region have the lowest willingness to pay. There is no significant difference in male and female residents. With the increase in age, there is a trend of initial increasing and then declining in willingness to pay. So that's the result of the heterogeneity. So in comparison, so what can we learn from those results? In comparison to the annual finding standard of the minimum, this is a very new released number. So it is 1,100 yuan, which equals to $157 per capita for urban and rural residents, basic medical insurance in 2023. So there is still room for improvement of in the comprehensive benefits and the welfare level of China's urban and rural resident-based medical insurance. So we are estimate a little bit higher value of this minimum policy requirements. So the residents exhibit significant heterogeneity in terms of their willingness to pay, which shed light in developing precise transformation plans for medical insurance contributions and funding based on individual characteristics. And also our welfare framework and structural approaches could have extensions in other policy research topics in other countries. And our future agenda is to give a calibration of the optimal funding and payment level from our structure model. So I think that's most of our agenda now, most of our story now. And thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions, you can ask me later after Jessica's presentation, or you can send me email and we can discuss it more. So thank you so much. That's all for my part.
Thank you so much, Professor Jinqi. Here. So we can have some, yes, few moments for questions. So I'd like to, I don't know if I completely understand everything. It's very different design from, if you compare to Brazilian health insurance. And it's a very interesting application about estimation of willingness to pay. Usually, we use willingness to pay to decide resource allocation in terms of which technologies the system should provide. And so in terms of to order preference of the society in terms of what should be provided or funded. And if I completely understand what you want to measure is the willingness to pay to decide the reimbursement politics. When you are integrating, I understand that there is a huge difference between I don't know if the audience understood that when people go to receive medical care, part of the healthcare expenditure, the individuals has to pay, but there is a reimbursement rate, and so Jinqi is using willingness to pay to decide the reimbursement rate.
We are not estimating the reimbursement rate directly.
Yes, directly.
Yeah, we just want to estimate the true value of this whole reform.
Yes.
The reform will have a lot of changes to the patients, except for the reimbursement rate, also including the catalog and the hospital level. So you can go whichever hospital you want if you are living in a village, but you can directly go to the hospital in the city. So before that, it cannot happen because you can only go to the city at the village. So otherwise, you will only have a very low reimbursement rate. But after integration, you have the wider range of the choice of the hospital. So there are a lot of welfare change in those reform. So we would like to skip all the single part of the outcomes. And we would like to using your health change, your consumption change, and your medical insurance, medical expenses change to estimate the welfare change of the individual part. So we estimate the demand, because if you can have the willing to pay, actually that's a demand curve of your health insurance.
Yes.
So we want to describe their true demands according to those numbers of willing to pay. But we cannot actually have the curve. We can only have the average value, of course. So we would like to see the average number, and then we are trying to have the heterogeneity estimates to see which people will have higher willing to pay. Because now in China, we start have a problem with this basic insurance because some people start to opt out the insurance. So, for example,
it's not mandatory.
Yeah, it's not mandatory. It's voluntarily. So previously, people are trying everybody will buy the insurance. But nowadays, some people will say, oh, I think I'm health, I don't need that because the premium is starting getting higher, so I would like to opt out the insurance. So they think it's not necessary to like keep taking up. So this is a new problem recently. So we would like to find out like which people they have a higher willingness to pay, so they will stay in the pool. But the people with low willingness to pay, some of them we estimate is less than 1,000. So that population will have higher possibility to opt out. So maybe the next step we would like to design the different funding level for different person.
Can you discriminate by income levels?
I think we can. We have the household income level in the survey, but now we only do a very rough
in terms
work.
of policy implications, can the government discriminate the premium of the health insurance based on the income level?
One direction they are thinking about. And also, as for the subsidy level, they can have design the different.
Yes,
because right.
One problem that it's completely we know about this, that if you estimate willingness to pay, it will be always conditional on income, and so the result that you find is expected to be found. And I understood that you are interested in estimating exactly the value, and now I understood that you are interested because you are observing opting out, and so how much the state could fund to avoid people opting out from the health system.
You're trying to find out the optimal funding level.
Yes.
Can give some suggestions like how to design the policy in the future.
Yes. Yeah. So this is a very different phenomenon from Brazil. We have universal health coverage without paying anything, without cost sharing, without co-payments. So for Brazil, it's for people who are sitting here, this is completely new. This is a problem when we are going to buy a public good. If you want to incentive people to buy health insurance, because health insurance has welfare impacts, very important welfare impacts, and you showed there's research literature about this, and probably the state cannot provide everything, so we need to incentivize people. So how much fund we should do for them to keep the health insurance. So that's very interesting application. And I would like to open for people in the audience. I don't know if someone has any question. It's a very, Kenya?
I completely understand how you would use this kind of information because we were, as Monica said, the results are very contaminated with very influenced by the the level of income of individuals. So, if by using our results, could we say or interpret the results like, poor people would value less the health insurance than rich people? And I see that like a problem here. I don't know how we would address this because of inequality. So, if you design a specific health insurance for poor people because they would value less the health insurance, they would have a problem with access. So this value would be used only to calibrate the premiums values, or would also be used to design the benefits, the package of benefits the health insurance will provide, because of course they are paying less. They would, I don't know if they would have less health care covered by the health insurance.
Oh, I think that's a good question. Like maybe some of the audience also like to know. So I think in our model, we didn't put the actual reimbursement level in the model. Some of the frameworks have already done this thing, so they calculate the optimal reimbursement level is around 70%. So you need to reimbursement like 70% of their out-of-pocket of the whole expenses. So I think in our model, we are trying to just put the the total value as it's a sum of the individual premium plus the public plus the government subsidy. So we are trying to make two channels. like fix the government subsidy, and maybe we can try to calculate the optimal premium. Or if we fix the premium part, maybe we can calculate the optimal tax subsidies. But maybe we cannot both let them change, and that's not cannot be realized in the calibration. So we will maybe find out maybe a better way to figure out this both. But until now, we can only fix one parameter and then let another parameter change, and to see whether I can find the balance point there. But we cannot actually find out the actual reimbursement level in our model. Yeah. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Jinqi, for this wonderful presentation. I think that it's really a very good job, I am sure, and a very robust paper that you are doing. Have you already published? No, not yet.
I have already finished the Chinese version.
Oh, yes, you have the Chinese version.
Yeah, I have a Chinese version.
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you so much. Yes. So I'd like to invite now Professor Kenya Noronha, who is going to moderate the next panel.
Sorry? Oh, alguém pode ajudar para ela colocar a tela cheia? Como que põe ali? So I will start the presentation here, okay? Then good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you for this lecture, which will be delivered by Professor Jessica. She's assistant professor in the School of Economics at HUST University, and her main research area is in health economics, impacts of aging policies in China healthcare system. She got her PhD in economics in Singapore Management University. And just to give you a taste of her research, she has published papers addressing long-term effects of early life malnutrition, welfare impacts of health insurance access, and the effects of cash transfer to medical saving accounts on healthcare utilization. This lecture is about the relationship between consumption, health, and utility that was written in collaboration with Adam Leaf from University of California, Berkeley. So the aim of this paper is to analyze how marginal utility of consumption varies by health status using a novel data from Singapore. So I'm confident that this discussion will be very insightful and fruitful for us. And Professor Jessica will have about 30 minutes or 35 minutes for your presentation. And after that, we will have some time for debate. So I encourage everyone here to ask your questions after her presentation. So I'd like to invite you to start your talk here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenya. Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica. So don't hesitate. If you have any question, you can stop me at any time. I don't have a lot of slides, and I prefer to have discussion with you. Okay, this is a joint work I have with my good friend Adam on new evidence on the relationship between consumption, health, and utility. Okay, let's begin. So all of us are economists over here, and we know that for economists, many of the models actually depend on marginal utility of consumption or utility of consumption. So the consumption often contains, food, transportation, utilities, entertainment, a lot of things. So we have a question: does the utility of consumption depend on a person's health status? Or in other words, so everybody here is with me. The marginal utility of consumption is when you take the first order derivative, you get the marginal utility of consumption. Okay, great. Now, our question is, this MUC, the marginal utility of consumption that you have, whether it varies with the person's health status. Okay, now why should we care about it, right? Why should we care about something that is so, sounds very minimal? Well, because this is fundamental when we design a lot of policies. For example, if we want to know about retirement saving, how much retirement saving is enough? If more years at the end of life are spent in good health, should people save more or save less as compared to the years spent in poor health? Or, for example, if we want to evaluate health insurance, right? For example, what Jinqi just presented, if people cut their consumption after an illness, does that reflect an incomplete health insurance, or does that show there is a low valuation of consumption when you're ill? So this is actually quite interesting. I don't know whether you have caught COVID-19. No? None of you have caught COVID-19. Oh, that's good for you. Good for you. So I caught the virus at the beginning of this year while I was completing this paper, and I noticed that for that month, my consumption level was very low. I don't know whether that's for you. It's definitely not. Well, typically when you are healthy, well, you're an economist, if your consumption level is very low, you assume that you have a budget constraint, right? You maximize your utility because your budget constraint. That's why you don't have a lot of consumption. But for that month, I'm definitely sure that I do not have a budget constraint that caused me to consume very little money. It's actually because I was too sick that I wasn't able to consume anything, or I just don't feel anything that's enjoyable at that moment. So that actually leads to the question over here. Right? When you actually feel ill, do you still take the same value of consumption as compared to when you are actually healthy? That's the fundamental question we try to solve over here in our paper. Now, has any studies been done before about this? The answer is yes. We have done a very thorough literature review on the past 20 years on the top 5 journals, and we found some papers are doing this. But the majority of the paper, because they don't have data on consumption, health, and proxy of utility at the same time. When you try to address this question, you need to have these 3 components in the same data set in order to have a credible empirical evaluation. So the previous studies have mostly just made assumptions about it. For example, Finkelstein, Lutimer, and Notwidigo in 2013 paper, they just use permanent income instead of consumption because consumption data are typically very rare and very difficult to obtain. Or, for example, Brown and Emmerich's paper, they just ask hypothetical choices about health insurance and see, based on these hypothetical questions, to derive this. Or the other paper, they ask hypothetical choices for compensation of health risk. So because they do not have direct evidence on consumption, health, and proxy of utility, the results that they have found so far are rather mixed. So for example, for Finkelstein's paper, they found that the health and consumption, the marginal utility of consumption is actually complementary to health. That means that when you're sick, you don't find consumption as enjoyable as compared to when you're actually healthy. In other words, when you feel sick, $1 extra that I give you to buy something is not as enjoyable as when you're actually healthy right now. But there are also evidence to show, for example, in Emmerich's paper and Wang's paper, that this is actually substitute. And then for Brown-Golda's paper, they found okay, sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. All right, so we write this code over here following Finkelstein's paper. Basically, she says that if we could observe information on health, consumption, and a proxy for utility, we could simply regress the utility proxy on consumption, health, and the interaction of consumption and health. And the coefficient on that interaction term would give us an estimate of the state-dependent utility, which is our focus of research in this paper. In practice, however, we know of no panel dataset with sufficient sample size that contain information on consumption, health, and utility proxy. That's what she wrote in her 2013 paper. Okay, the reason why we write this whole chunk of words over here is because for the next slide, we're going to tell you that we actually have a dataset. Yay! That contains exactly the 3 components that we just said to you. So the dataset name is Singapore Life Panel. This is it's like the Charles family, but it's down in Singapore. So it started from the year 2015 and it's still ongoing. But we used the first 54 monthly waves on about 11K older households. So the time is roughly between 2015 to 2019 because we want to preserve the consumption pattern before the COVID because we believe it might be different after the COVID. We actually implement the regression suggestion that we just showed you from the Finkelstein paper to estimate the relationship between consumption, health, and utility. And after that, after we implement Finkelstein's method, we're going to apply it under the Singapore setting with the medical savings account, which is their insurance system, to test whether when somebody is hit by a health shock, and if you observe a decrease of consumption, whether it's actually because of state-dependent utility function, or whether it's because the health insurance system was incomplete. Okay? So far, so good. Anyone has any questions? Am I clear enough? Okay, great. All right, so here's a preview of our results. So we found that health and consumption are actually complement. Say, yes. Yes, we have longitudinal, okay. Yes, so we have the same individual for 54 waves for 54 months. So we observe, it's a monthly frequency data. So we observe about 33 categories of consumption every month for the same person for continuously for 5 years. It's a very powerful data set.
Any information about health status too?
Yes, every month. About what is your self-rated health, also your chronic conditions, your ADLs, what else? Also your life satisfaction, job satisfaction, also about your spouse. There's a lot of information. It's a huge data set. Yes. Any other questions? No? Oh, sure, no problem. Yeah. So here's a preview of our results. How do we read this? If this is state-independent utility, which means that marginal utility consumption does not depend on the health status, you would observe two parallel lines over here. However, what we see is that when people have no disease, this is the monthly consumption, and this is our proxy for utility, which is the life satisfaction. You can see that when people have no diseases, this is slightly steeper as compared to people who have diseases. In other words, we actually show that marginal utility of consumption is complement to the health status. So in other words, you actually enjoy consumption more when you're healthy as compared to when you're sick. And we found that one extra chronic condition brings down the marginal utility of consumption by about 25%. And then in our application, we found that people cut consumption after they fell sick, not because the health insurance is incomplete, was actually because what we said, the state-dependent utility function. Okay, so let's look at the data. Typically, we get a lot of questions about data. I know I come from China. I grew up in Singapore. I did my high school, undergraduate, and graduate school in Singapore. So this is about Singapore. It doesn't matter. It's not really about Singapore. It's more about general setting. But anyway, so this data set, okay. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about Singapore. I don't know, any one of you have been to Singapore? No? Singapore is a tiny country. It's like a city, basically. So if you drive from one end to the other end, it takes about 1.5 hours. Yeah, huge, right? Yeah, with about 5.4 million people. Lots of people, huh? Yeah. So, but then it's one of the richest country in the world with the average GDP per capita about 73,000. Yeah, and there's a very high life expectancy rate at birth. So it's multicultural, multi-ethnicity. It's a great country. Everyone should visit. The only problem is that it's so well governed that it's almost impossible to implement this in any other country. So yeah. And the health system in Singapore is also very unique as compared to the one in China and also compared to the one in Brazil. Because in Singapore, we believe that everyone is for him or herself. It's your own responsibility to keep yourself afloat, not the responsibility of the government. That's the core value of the system, which is also very different from here, as I gather from the past 2 days, right? Because there's a lot of welfare going on around here, but it's not in Singapore. So they have this system called medical savings account. So what does it mean? It basically is a check and savings account. Like everybody has a bank account, right? So medical savings account is basically a bank account, but you can only use the money in the MSA to purchase healthcare services, which means that you can't use this money to buy food or any other things. It can only be used in healthcare. Okay, And this is mandatory contribution for every month. About 4% to 10.5% of your salary will be contributed to your individual savings account. So you can't withdraw it from any other purposes. So this account, other than Singapore, also USA has this similar system called health savings account. So China has a similar system, but it's vastly different because you can actually sneakily use this account to buy some other things. But in Singapore, because it's so well governed, it's impossible for you to actually use this for any other purposes. Okay. Now the data. Singapore Life Panel. Singapore Life Panel was conducted first wave in August 2015. So it's a monthly panel. Yes. Run out? So if you are married, if you have children, if your medical savings account runs out, you can use a family member's medical savings account. If everybody's medical savings account runs out, you use cash. Well, if you're super poor, then you make case-by-case scenario to the government to ask for support. How often does it run out? It's not that often because as long as you're working, you accumulate the money every month, about 4% to 10.5%. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, let's say that I die of natural causes.
Yes.
What happens to the money?
Oh, it will be bequeathed to your family. So first to your spouse and then to your children. Yeah, and also for this amount of money, you actually get returns every year. I think annual returns about 4%, fixed return. This is important. Think about it. If the return is so, I don't know, so some of you look so young over here. I don't know whether you have done any investment. No? Yes? Yes. Okay, somebody's nodding. Great. If you do investment, what's the annual return for your portfolio? So nowadays, the economy situation is not so great. If you can't have a guaranteed return of about 4%, I would say you're doing pretty okay. If you have like more than 4%, then that's great. But typically, if you check a savings account, that give you an annual interest rate about what, 2 point something? So it makes sense for people in Singapore to actually keep this money in the MSA rather than spend them. Think about it. If there's there's no interest, right? If there's no return to this account, what would you do? You would spend all the money. Yeah, so this is a very important information over here as well. So people do value the money inside the MSA, and they would love to keep it there as well. And it's being accumulated every month as long as you're working. So that's just like a different system in Singapore. So they want to, yes?
The system assumes that people can optimize the resource allocation.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Yes. Yes.
And then an individual can know.
By the way, everyone can just raise their hand and say anything to me. The results is very straightforward and simple. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yes, in a way. Yeah, it's not being done elsewhere.
It works because the life expectancy is very high, but
I will show you some summary statistics. You will see how that works in Singapore. Just give me a second. I want to introduce you the data in case some of you are interested to do a master or PhD degree in Singapore. If you go to Singapore Management University, I think you can apply for this data. So it's basically a version of the HRS, the Health and Retirement Saving data set. So it has about 12,000 households, which accounts about 16,000 individuals. But every month, roughly, there will be about 8,000 to 9,000 individuals will participate every month. So some people might be missing in between for several months, but overall, I think our survival rate is pretty good. Attrition rate is rather low. So there's a lot of, they are surveyed in 4 different frequencies. One is the core module, which is surveyed every month. For example, your income, your consumption, and then there's diagnosis of chronic condition, and there's a lot of measures of subjective well-being. And then there are also other questions, for example, that were conducted annually about the household assets, which includes the balances on the medical savings account. Okay, here's the summary statistics. Okay, I wanted to point to you over here, if you look at the MSA balances, right? It's about 41,600 Singapore dollar. So which is about 38,000 USD. On a average balance for the older people. So it's actually quite high. People do accumulate a lot of money in their MSA. Yeah, and then the total health spending every year is about $126, which is about 100 USD roughly. Yeah. So we have a rather balanced panel. Well, so it's nationally representative for people between age 50 to 70. So that's basically the summary statistics we have over here. All right. Now, the method is also very straightforward for the first part. According to the Finkelstein paper, we just show you the whole paragraph. We just try to implement that method exactly. So we're going to regress upon the utility proxy, which is life satisfaction, on the interaction term between a measurement of health status, which we use number of chronic conditions with log consumption. And then we regress on the rest of term. We also control for fixed effects, weight fixed effect, and household fixed effect. Okay, so this is the exact method in the Finkelstein paper. So we just replicate that using our data. That's our first step. So if the marginal utility does not depend on health, or in other words, if the marginal utility of consumption is state independent, we would expect to see a beta 1 equal to 0. Okay? That's very straightforward and simple. You can actually do this if you have a data set by yourself. It takes just the OLS regression. Okay, here is our result. That's the one we just previewed, and we can see that we started regression with people who do not have any chronic condition when they first start, right? Because if you already have chronic conditions, you might behave very differently. So we restrict the sample to people who have not developed any kind of chronic condition since the beginning of the survey, and then we start from there. Okay, and then we can see that the slope for life satisfaction is different between people who have no diseases as compared to people with one diseases. If that's basically what I said before, it shows that the marginal utility of consumption is actually a complement with the health status. We also did this for people with major disease conditions and non-durable consumption. All of the results are very robust to our specification. And here is the regression result. So this term, beta 1, is what we're interested in. It shows it's all very steady and robust to see a negative sign. Doesn't matter whether we want to use non-durable consumption as our measure of consumption, or whether we want to use all consumption excluding the healthcare as our measurement of consumption. We observe a very steady, robust, significant negative relationship as for beta 1, which shows that there is a negative health dependent. In other words, you do not value your consumption as much when you feel sick. Okay, what we do next is we try to find out what is the magnitude. So beta 1 divided by beta 2 is a metric for state dependence. And once we do that, we actually find over here. So this actually shows that with one additional chronic condition that you develop, it actually reduces your marginal utility consumption by 25.4%. Of course, if you show this for the other estimates, it varies a little bit. You can think of this as a higher bound and lower bound. That gives you a roughly range for this. All right. That's the first step, which, well, if we want to publish a paper with just one step, it's probably not enough. So what we're going to do next is we want to apply this under the Singapore setting, the MSA account, which Monica just said, a crazy system. Okay, so we want to see how the crazy system works. All right, so a common way to evaluate whether insurance protects household from health shocks is to see that whether the consumption level changes after the experienced health shock. Make sense? Okay, great. So if the insurance actually provide a complete insurance mechanism, you would expect no change of consumption. So if you do observe a change of consumption after an individual experiences a health shock, it means two things. One, the insurance is bad. The other, probably there is a state dependence, which means that you fall sick. You don't want to consume anymore because the consumption does not bring enough utility as before. So we want to test this out.
You are assuming that the health shock does not have effects on income?
Yes, at the moment. Yeah. It might have. We actually did that for other robustness. Yeah, so for now, we look at the first, we assume that whether this is a complete insurance. So what we do is we try to regress following the literature on this. We want to see the changes in consumption with the health status over here. And here, again, the health status is being used as a number of chronic conditions. We also have other measurements of health status, for example, number of ADLs, number of major chronic conditions. We tested a few. All right. Okay, so if households are completely insured, of course, we would expect a delta to be 0. So if delta is smaller than 0, so it's either incomplete insurance or estate dependence. So here's our regression. And this is what we're interested in. Basically, that's the delta. We have 4 different measurements for whether it's number of diseases, number of major diseases, or any disease or any major disease. We basically see a very consistent to see that the delta is actually negative over here. And if we want to see the magnitude in it, what we do, if we assume a standard CRRA function, right? Everybody knows CRRA function, right? The utility function. If we assume a utility function and we take derivative to it, we can actually find a relationship over here, which can be testifiable since we already have beta 1 and everything. Okay, so what we do is we use the estimate that we developed in the first part to try to see how much should be the impact. Of course, we make assumption that the gamma over here is 4, and it shows that the changes in consumption should be between minus 6.3% to minus 2.6% for all diseases, and this range for major diseases, which is quite consistent with what we observe over here, which is about 1.5 something or 4 point something, right? So our estimate for the first part shows that the changes in consumption that we observe after people who experience a major health shock actually falls within the prediction of the state-dependent utility. So that's our first test to see that, okay, it's probably not the insurance that is incomplete. It's probably because of health dependency. But many of you probably think that, that's probably not very convincing, right? Okay, what we're gonna do is the second test. What we do over here, let's say, if you have if you have this crazy account, as Monica commented, the MSA, so if you have a very high amount of the account balances, and when you experience a health shock, do you expect your consumption level to drop more or less as compared to people with a fewer amount of the balance? Let's say again, if I am a person with a very high account balance as compared to a person over here with a low account balance, and both of us experience a health shock right now, who would have a bigger drop in consumption? That person or me? It should be the other person, right? That's basically your understanding if the insurance is not complete, correct? Right, okay, but we observe the opposite. So we divide the sample according to their asset levels, which is the medical savings account balances. We divide them into 3 groups with the lowest balance, middle balance, and the highest balance. And this is their non-durable consumption after they experience a health shock. And you can see that the biggest drop actually happens in the people with the highest amount balances as compared to people with the lowest account balances. And we do this for also total consumption, excluding the healthcare. We observe the similar pattern as well. It's actually the people with the highest balance that experience the largest drop. When we look at the results, we couldn't actually explain this with incomplete, explain this with incomplete health insurance, so it has to be state-dependent utility function. So that's the end of the paper. So we find that health and consumption are complementary with each other. So the magnitude of state dependence will be estimated is actually greater than the prior literature. So if for future research, for many of you who would evaluate health insurance, long-term care insurance, even unemployment insurance, disability insurance, this is a very important parameter that you probably should take into consideration on the magnitude on how much of the welfare you would like to have. And of course, we're going to do more for the future. We're actually done a few. So we would like to check whether spousal responses to the change of partner's health, and we'll probably want to apply this to retirement saving and other applications. So that'll be the end of my presentation. Thank you a lot. You can ask me questions now. Thanks.
Thank you, Jessica. Wow, yes, you are very quickly. It was a very nice presentation. It was wonderful to hear you here. So I have some questions. I don't know if it's working. No?
It's working,
okay.
Yes.
Actually, I have the same feelings that Monica has about the medical saving account. I have the opportunity to study a little bit about this when we're working with the healthcare system comparisons. I have some questions about the medical saving accounts, but
Sure.
I also have some questions about how you measure the health status.
Okay.
So I'd like to, let's talk about first the health status, please.
Sure.
We measure the health conditions using chronic diseases.
Yes.
And then we start to analyze when the person at the beginning of the self-report
beginning,
conditions
yeah,
at the
okay.
beginning. And I'm just wondering if because to measure health conditions is a multidimensional variable. So, and also when you use a chronic condition, you must have people there that they have at the beginning of the disease, probably they don't have like a decrease in their, developing some, I don't know, some disability. Or
sure, yeah.
It's not a severe case. So in that case, as you are using the beginning of the chronic condition, now when the person respond that they have this condition, I'm not sure that you are taking account the severity of this disease, that probably will have more impacts on well-being. So at the beginning, probably the disease is controlled, probably they don't have many symptoms, so probably this will have an impact on your results. So I have a question that if you test, for example, the interaction with age, for instance, because if probably people who are older, then they have experienced this chronic disease more time, for a long time, so probably they have more impacts of this disease on their lives. Because if you have like hypertension, diabetes, at the beginning you don't have like such a substantial change in your life. Okay. So we're gonna have like, you're not gonna change your consumption level. So I'd like to ask about this, how we could take this account, the severity of the disease that probably will impact more the well-being of the individuals.
Sure. Thank you, Kenya, for this wonderful question. So first of all, we restrict the sample to people who do not have any chronic condition at the beginning of the sample. So we want to make sure that there's no, this consistency of the current sample we use. For what you ask, what we do right now is we have two measurements. One is a measurement of number of diseases, which is the number of chronic conditions. We have in total 7 different chronic condition measurement, including hypertension, which is the lighter ones, and some major ones like stroke, heart attacks, even psychiatric conditions. And the other few I couldn't recall, cancer. Yeah, so, and then we also have another measurement is the number of major diseases. So we would exclude, for example, hypertension into it. We only include like stroke, cancer, what's the other one? I couldn't recall at the moment. And these are the first two we have over here as we see that total number of diseases or the number of major diseases all give us a negative state dependence. So that's the first thing. And second is we also use ADLs. So everybody familiar with ADLs, right? Assisted daily living, which concerns with the degree of disability.
Do you have this kind of measure there?
Yes.
So did you use it there?
Yes, this is our result for ADLs.
Oh, ADLs, okay.
Yeah, so we have consistent results over here as well.
But it is more significant when you use this or not?
It's actually similar. The other is...
The result is similar?
Similar. The other is minus 0.006. Here is minus 0.05.
Okay.
Yeah, we also take into consideration, for example, we presented this a lot of times, and people ask us questions, for example, what if you have spouse as compared to you don't have spouse, right? Your spouse might just support you and then you feel different. We also run on single household who never got married in Singapore. So we also have consistent results as well. Yeah, so...
And as you said, Singapore is a very rich country, but do they have there like a heterogeneity or socioeconomic inequalities that you could also try to investigate to see if there is a difference between age groups and also socioeconomic groups?
Yeah, I think that's a very good extension for our future work. Okay. So for our current paper, our first job is to see that there is a state dependency of the marginal utility of consumption. That's what we care about the most. Of course, beyond this paper, there are so much more applications that we can do based on the results. For example, a reevaluation of the health insurance, reevaluation of the disability insurance, what is the optimal amount of retirement saving, a lot of it will be done differently. Then, of course, the extension can be whether the magnitude of state dependence will vary by different socioeconomic conditions or by age. This can also be done for our future works. For now, for this paper, that's not our primary focus.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my question about the medical saving account is
sure.
It's related to, I'm just worried about for people who was born with some health condition or rare condition, as we are studying that we talked about yesterday. What is the name in English? Atrophy, spinal muscular atrophy. And people can born, some children can born with this disease, and the condition is very rare, and the treatment is very, very expensive.
Sure. Yeah.
So is there any other insurance in Singapore that can cover this kind of catastrophic expenditures that you don't want to use the MSA?
So for a complete overview of the Singapore health system, it's actually 3 layers. The first layer is what we call the medical savings account. The second layer is what we call a MediShield, which is a social insurance, but it only reimburses some of the inpatient care if you stay in hospital and you have a catastrophic high-level expenditure. And then the third layer is what we call MediFund. MediFund is a case-by-case scenario. For example, when you mentioned if the children has a very severe disease and it costs a lot of money, you can make a case-by-case scenario to the authority. Once they approve it, then you can be reimbursed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. I will open now for everyone in the audience that wants to have a question, to ask a question.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you for your wonderful presentation.
Oh, thank you.
I'd like to ask you a little bit about, I would like you to expand a little bit more on the last issue that you brought in your presentation about the heterogeneous impact of severities of the health condition by different levels of income. What's the rationale behind the result that you showed?
This one, right?
Yes, exactly, precisely. And thank you very much.
No problem. So here we divide the sample by the amount in their balance of MSA, right? That's the insurance we're talking about, right? So if you have a very high level of balances, right, your balances is so high, that's basically a rationale to say that you have more insurance as compared to other people, correct? As compared to the poor folks in the lowest quintile of this. Okay, so when a health shock hits the person, we would expect the person with the highest insurance, which is very complete insurance, right, to not drop their consumption because you already have a complete insurance. Or at least your consumption drop should be less than the folks over here because these folks would definitely have less insurance as compared to people over here. That's our assumption. However, what we observe is that after a health shock hits, the people who have the biggest amount of consumption drop are the people with the highest amount of medical savings account. Or in other words, people with the highest amount of insurance actually experience the biggest consumption drop. This cannot be explained by the hypothesis of incomplete insurance, but it can be explained by the state-dependent utility. That's why we actually come to this conclusion.
Can I just add a question about this?
Yes, sure.
But this can maybe, I don't know, if this may be relate with the income level of the individual. For example, people with the lowest account, they probably have the lower income level,
no problem.
and they probably have also more restrict consumption. They cannot reduce the consumption a lot, even when they face a health shock. So people in the highest level, they probably have high income and they have high levels of consumption. They probably have more room to reduce their consumption.
Sure.
So probably it's not related to the level of coverage, but relate also with the package of consumption that they already have, because it's related to income. No?
Yeah, so we did similar thing for people's asset levels. So we, instead of using the insurance over here, we also look at their level of budget constraints. We find similar patterns over here.
Okay.
Yeah, and we also look at non-durable consumptions and the total consumption. We also find similar patterns over here. Yeah, but I think this speaks more directly to it because this is more of the level of health insurance that you have. Yeah. So, I don't know whether I answered the question.
Is there any question? Any other question?
No? Okay. Oh, okay. Monica has one more. Monica is on fire.
So, well, first of all, thank you very much for this wonderful presentation.
Sure. Yeah.
We are always, when we teach health economics, thinking about state-dependent utility.
Oh, that's great.
Yes, because, well, this is a known fact, but we say no, but let's forget it. And
most of the time, people forget about it. We actually contact Finkelstein.
So now I can say we can't forget it because Jessica has already proven that it's quite important.
Well, wait until I publish, and then you can cite my paper, which I'll be more happy.
Yes, but I'm completely sure that you will publish this paper, and so it's really important and very interesting. So I have two questions. The first, I think that Kenya has already made a point, is about the measurement of health status, because you are measuring in terms of chronic disease. Okay, I completely agree. It's easy to measure like this, but we know that people they can change their preferences before and after a health shock. So would you call this change of preference the state-dependent utility? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes, because we had you know that the Mariana has one of the biggest dam collapses here. It was a mine very close here in the one that you are going on Thursday in Ouro Preto. And yes,
thank you for the information. It's very assuring right now.
No, it's safe at this moment. No worries about this. But then we have the challenge to measure health-related quality of life loss related to this. And one of our challenges was exactly this, because people change their preference before and after a health shock.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes, and then this is quite interesting, because we always let's forget it and think about it. But sometimes what happens is that people change their preferences, that something that was a problem before a health shock is not a problem anymore because you value it much more now.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So how do you think this can change your results? Because you change the consumption.
Okay, I understand your question, Monica. I don't think this will change the result for now. This is more like a testify to the current results. So for our paper, the focus is very narrow. We just want to prove that there is a state-dependent utility. Okay. Because when we do the literature review for the past 20 years on the top fives, because as economists, we are religiously believe in the top 5 papers, right?
Thanks for saying religiously, because it's quite a religion.
Yeah. So we did a very thorough meta-analysis, and we found several papers So most of the time, people just say we assume directly a state-independent utility function, because that's just simple. We actually contact Finkelstein. We ask her. We're like, so you wrote this paper in 2013, but in the other paper where Jinqi just presented, we are also very familiar with that paper. I wrote a similar paper and published before, and you assume directly a state-independent utility. I mean, You're the person who started this, and you assume state-independent utility. Why? And she wrote back to us. She just said, because it's simple,
Yes.
Yeah, that's precisely why we wanted to do this, because there is an undecided decision. There's non-conclusive about it, because people don't have enough data to prove this. So our paper is very narrow and very sharp. We just want to address this for now for this paper. Then, of course, there's a lot of things that beyond this, for example, like after people experience a shock, their preferences will change. A lot of things will change after that, which means that a lot of things in health economics that we assume or we take for granted before should be changed. That's basically what we want to address. So I think our paper will be very controversial after it comes out. I think some people will hate us. Because, some people will love us because it means that you can publish more paper, right, based on these results. Because if you review majority of the paper, especially on disability insurance, I think disability insurance people did a really good job, because Hamish Lowe published a paper in 2015, actually assumed state-dependent utility. And people all follow his model afterwards. So all literature in disability insurance after 2014 assumes state-dependent utility function. But then for health insurance, since no one is actually doing that as a ritual, then everyone on health insurance evaluation so far assume a state-independent utility, like what you said about like what you commented. Which means that in the future, when people try to do research, they actually have to alter this. They probably have to, well, at least address the potential that state-dependent utility might have impacted their results. Like, what's the range about it? Yeah, I think that's the common practice a lot of people are doing these days. So, I don't know. I hope that more people will like us than hate us once we get this out.
I have one more question.
Yeah, sure.
How do you address the time constraint?
What do you mean by time constraint?
If I need time to get my medical care, I can't have time to get consumption.
So for now, we do not address time constraint because we don't have any information on that time constraint. We just have to assume that they have Apple time. Yeah.
Do you have information about the healthcare utilization there? In this
healthcare, sorry, what?
Healthcare utilization.
Yes, we do.
Maybe you can use this as a proxy, because if people are sick, they need to go to the doctor, so they're going to spend more time on the doctor than on their eyes. So maybe you can have this as a proxy, as you have people in have them in longitudinal. So
sure, we can do that.
If they change the consumption toward to healthy consumption.
Sure, we can try that. Yeah, that'll be an interesting suggestion. Yeah. Okay, any other questions? No?
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Jessica, for this terrific presentation. Gente, a gente vai almoçar e voltamos às 2 horas. Até mais. Obrigada pela presença de vocês aqui, gente. Obrigada.